My name is Mykesha Mack, and I am a certified life coach and nurse healer. And I'm super honored to be with y'all today. I'm going to share my screen so you all can see um, my slides and everything. I see we got people coming in from NY, Massachusetts. I love it. I love it. And I thank you all for being with me today. So as I get prepared to share my screen, I hope y'all got a snack or something where y'all are um, ready to receive today and ready to get some healing, because our presentation today is called Healing the Healer. And so let me share my screen really quickly. Y'all, so this won't be like your average workshop presentation. I love when people talk to me. My dad used to always say growing up, talk to me and I'll talk back. And that's kind of how I operate. So your participation today is more than welcome. But like I said, welcome everyone. My name is Mykesha Mack, and I am extremely honored and excited to be with you all today, especially partnering with Connect RN. One thing I'll say before we even move forward is that Connect RN is a rare organization that I am excited to partner with for many reasons, but one being that they appreciate the nurse beyond the nurse. They're not just here to help you with employment, but they're here to serve you as a being, as a person, right? And so I love that. And that's why one of the reasons I'm super excited to connect with Connect RN today and to be amongst you today. So again, my name is Mykesha Mack, and the presentation we're talking about today is Healing the Healer. Healing the Healer. You are the healers. You are our healers. But you all need healing too. And that is why we're here today, to help you and give you practical strategies on how to really heal. What does that look like for you as a healer? And so before we go any further, I just want to say two words. Two words. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Thank you so much for how you all have essentially laid down your life, for the last beyond 2 years. Sad to say that we've just now noticed it the last 2 years because of COVID, the pandemic, and all those things. However, I just want to say thank you. And we can't really thank you enough. You see my guy here, he's like, listen, he can't even control himself. And that is me. So I just wanted to say thank you to you all. And again, I'm super excited to be amongst you today. And thank you for all that you've done. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I see y'all in the chat. Okay, so what is today going to look like? The next hour will look like us doing an icebreaker. We'll talk about, me a little bit, why I am so focused and on a mission to heal the healer. We'll talk about emotional trauma, signs and symptoms of emotional trauma, and ways to treat it. And then we'll open it up for questions, okay? And so without further ado, I want to hear from y'all. Y'all put in the chat and talk to me. Just a simple icebreaker. If you could go on an all expense paid trip anywhere in the world, where would it be? Okay. Like, where would it be? I just want to know. Would you go to Aruba? Is it Italy, Indonesia, Hawaii, Cancun? Where are we going? Matter of fact, where y'all taking me? And you also have the option to choose. I would just listen to some options, but let me know where we're going, because I will pack my bags tonight. Okay. Oh, I love it. Okay, Ghana. Give me some Ghana in the building. Indonesia, Hawaii. Yes, I love it. Ghana, Africa. Okay, I'm here for it. Italy. Give me all the pasta. Okay, Nick, I love it. Yes. So funny story, y'all. I actually I went to Africa like 3 years ago, and it was like thebomb.com. I don't just say that, just say that it was thebomb.com. I actually went to Ghana specifically. And so I love that. Nigeria. Ooh, okay. I actually want to go to Nigeria next. I love it. I love this participation. So y'all keep the same energy up with me. That was just to kind of open things up and really kind of get us thinking, get us, smiling, laughing, imagining, where we going, what they call it nowadays, manifesting. And so I love it. Awesome. So I would actually go to Aruba, because I just want to go. I've been wanting to go for a while. And so awesome. Thank you guys for sharing that. Continue to definitely share. But as we're getting into the presentation, why am I here? Who is this woman that you're seeing on the screen? Who am I? My name is Mykesha Mack. And as I said before, I am on a mission to help emotionally fatigued nurses discover their true identity beyond the badge to live a life of peace on and off the clock. Okay. I am the CEO of Belief Speaks LLC, and I am the founder of Healing the Healer Coaching. And I am on a mission to really help nurses, emotionally fatigued nurses, to begin to heal and take care of themselves. A lot of what I found in the coaching space, I've been coaching for over 10 years now. And what I found is that a lot of nurses were drawn to me. So I didn't choose nurses, nurses chose me. And I just said, you know what, we're going to do this. We're going to stand in the gap for the nurses because I don't see enough help and support for you all. And so I am on a mission to do so. Okay. And a little bit about me and kind of how I got into, or not even just into this field, but where I am today as far as even healing myself. You guys see my pictures here. That's me as a kid. I grew up in South Central LA and saw a lot of things and went through a lot of things, and was able to, go to college and do different things. I went to Long Beach State University. Come on now, if you know Long Beach, whoop whoop. I went to Long Beach State University, and after I graduated, I got straight into corporate America. I worked for a big tech company here in Los Angeles. And yeah, it was awesome. But growing up, what I realized is that I had a lot of wounds and a lot of emotional trauma, and I was very, very insecure, right? I was very insecure. You guys see pictures of me being heavier. I went through an extreme depression at a large period of my life, anxiety, suicidal ideation, so many things. And I like to say, like, vulnerability breeds freedom. Y'all okay with that? Because I like to keep it real and let you know where I've come from, in hopes that you are able and willing to share your own story, if not with me, other people. But yeah, I experienced suicidal ideation and so many things. But what I realized is that I didn't know who I was, y'all. I didn't realize who I was and my identity. And so I looked for other things and people to give me identity. And it all really left me kind of feeling empty, even with chasing the corporate ladder. I was in corporate America, chased the corporate ladder. I ran a customer success team. You guys see my team here. I didn't have their permission to share the picture, so kind of blacked out their faces, but I ran a large team at the tech company. But what I realized is that I was still burnt out on my own. Like, I was giving to everybody else. I was giving to my bosses. I was giving to my family. I was giving to my friends and my relationships. And I was finding my identity in those relationships and friendships and things, but it all still left me feeling very empty. I was speaking across the world. They would send me to different places, and I was living my best life, essentially what other people would assume was the best life, right? I was traveling, just living it up. But what I found was that I was still very much empty, and I was caught in a cycle of burnout and people pleasing because I didn't know how to say no. I didn't know how to set proper boundaries. And I was wounded myself while I was trying to heal everybody else, right? Ironic. It may sound familiar to some of you. I was pouring out, and I had a wound that I never dealt with from childhood, several wounds that I endured during childhood, but it was never healed. And so as I grew up, the wound essentially grew bigger. And this is an emotional wound that I'm referring to, right? And it grew bigger and bigger. And I tried to fill the void with so many other things, but nothing ever really worked. And so I remained wounded emotionally. And I like to say I was bleeding out. I was bleeding out. I was bleeding in my relationships, bleeding in my friendships, bleeding on the job. And nobody knew because I wore a smile and I made it look good, right? Hello, somebody. Someone says, I still struggle with saying no, but I've gotten so much better. That is so awesome. Thank you for your transparency and vulnerability. Yeah, you guys are so welcome. And we're going to be vulnerable with each other today. So can you tell me, from a nursing CNA experience, from your experience being a healer, what happens if a wound is left untreated, y'all? What happens if a wound is left untreated and does not heal? Can y'all tell me about that? What happens? You can put it in the comments. We can talk about that. So as I just said, I was wounded as a child emotionally, but just physically in general. When we think of a wound, what happens if it's left untreated and it does not heal? The wound gets worse. Sepsis, death. Ooh, yes, I love this. Love it. the wound gets worse. We have sepsis, we have death, we have all these answers coming in. And I agree. I definitely agree. So the wound gets worse. It gets, infected, and eventually can lead to death. And this is also kind of what I put here. You guys took the words right out of my mouth. So if a wound is left untreated, it gets infected, it spreads deeper into maybe our bloodstreams, it spreads deeper into the skin. And then it ultimately can lead to more issues, to more serious issues. So possibly even death, like someone said. And that is the same thing with trauma and emotional pain and emotional wounds. So when you have an emotional wound that does not get treated, a lot of us have wounds from childhood. A lot of us have wounds from work and, being a nurse. You all just went through COVID and going through that pandemic. There were so many things that you had gone through and endured, and that was very traumatic. That can cause an emotional wound and so many other things, right? And so, but as you know, many people get used to the pain, right? Hello, somebody. You get used to the pain, you get used to the wound. And when someone admits themselves to ER, 9 times out of 10, they're like, listen, I need help right now. But most likely that wound, that pain was already kind of brewing up. That pain was already there. Maybe they stubbed their toe and they just decided to go in when it looked purple and it was about to fall off. And that's how a lot of us treat ourselves when we have emotional wounds that are left untreated. We like, oh, we put it to the back burner. Oh, it's okay. Oh, it'll get better. Oh, I'll learn how to set the boundaries one day. Or, it's okay that these things are happening, but it's not okay. And so how do you define emotional wounds and trauma? Emotional wounds and trauma is defined as injury to the psyche after living through an extremely frightening or distressing event, and may result in challenges in functioning or coping normally after the event. So we go through emotional trauma, we have these wounds, and it changes the way that we see ourselves. Hello, can we be honest? Have we gone through wounds? And I'll ask this question in a second, but it changes the way we see ourselves. It changes the way we see the world. And it really kind of forces us almost to change our coping mechanisms and change the way that we act and live, because now that we've gone through this an emotional or traumatic event, we have to protect ourselves from that thing happening again. And so psychologically, things begin to happen and shift that we don't realize. And so I want to pose a question to you all. Can you think of a time in your life in which you experienced some sort of trauma? Can you think of a time in your life where you experienced, something that happened to you that changed the way that you thought, changed the way that you see yourself, changed the way that you see the world? Can you think of any time? You can put a yes or no. And if you, really bold and want to be transparent, you can put that thing in the comments. But I would love to know, have you experienced any emotional or traumatic event in your life? Yes. I love it. I love the transparency. Yes. Okay, awesome. And so have I, as you all know. And so that is good that you can recognize that, because studies show that more than 70% of people in their lifetime will go through more or one or more traumatic events in their life. So I appreciate y'all being honest with that question. And so with that, during a recent study, it was found that 87% of nurses currently or previously have experienced symptoms of anxiety and depression, and even suicidal ideation. 87%, y'all. Can you believe that? 87%. There was a study done amongst a few hundred nurses, and they found that 87% of those nurses were currently or had previously experienced symptoms of anxiety and depression. And so if you have experienced some sort of trauma or traumatic event, maybe you realize it, maybe you don't. Maybe you're trying to think about it and it's like, have I? I've had a pretty good life. Things are pretty good. Yeah, nursing is kind of hard sometimes, but it was okay. But sometimes what we don't realize is that we can take on so much. Hello, healers, you can take on so much and normalize it. The toxicity or even the chaos becomes normalized, and you don't even realize that you've gone through such a traumatic time. and that your psyche is now changed because of those traumatic events. And so one thing I'm big on, y'all, in this space that we're going to have, in this time we're going to have together, is awareness. I want to create an awareness within us all so that we can then move forward into healing. And so one thing about awareness is that sometimes we may not be aware, but I want to help you become aware, because these are some of the signs and symptoms of emotionally wounded. These are some of the signs and symptoms of being emotionally wounded. And so here we have, and this is not just limited to nursing, at the top is more so generally. So sometimes we put walls up to protect ourselves from being hurt. Sometimes we have codependency issues, people pleasing. Hello, that was me. People pleasing, constantly feeling like we're not good enough, perfectionism, depression and anxiety, over attaching early in relationships out of fear of abandonment and rejection, fearful and pessimistic ideas or ways of thinking. We're afraid of people getting close to us. Those are all signs of being emotionally wounded. And so maybe you didn't realize that you had experienced some sort of emotional trauma. You maybe still can't pinpoint what event has happened, but I can guarantee you, if you have any of these signs, many of us do, that you've gone through some sort of emotional trauma and you have emotional wounds. And what does that look like as far as even more so being a nurse? So many nurses, and even a lot of my nurse clients, obviously have served during the pandemic, and it was very chaotic. And you may find yourself now having almost like what many will call it PTSD, because that was such a traumatic time. And so you're now more on edge, or you're avoiding even thinking about that time. You're like, you know what? I don't even want to think about that. So many people died, so many things happened. That is just a lot to even think about. Or maybe you don't want to talk about it. You're easily frightened. You're afraid of patients dying now. You're in a negative mood, or you constantly have mood swings. You're always on guard. You avoid going certain places. Maybe you even stopped going to work for a period of time because it was just way too much. You avoided certain activities, flashbacks, all of these things, difficulty sleeping, bad dreams. All of these things are signs of being emotionally wounded. And what did I say before? That we're working on creating an awareness. A lot of times we go through these traumatic times and we're not even aware of the impact that it has had on us emotionally, and that we're stressed out and we're burnt out. You know what I'm saying? And being emotionally wounded and continuing to pour into our families, into our patients, our partners, you know what I'm saying? It serves everyone else, and we're trying to meet everyone else's need except our own. And it leads to the big B word. Y'all know that B word. Who can guess it? Who can guess it? I'm not even going to tell y'all yet. Who can guess the B word that all of these things can lead to? I'm going to wait for somebody to put it in the chat because I know. Carice, yes. Okay, look, the chat is going up. I love it. Burnout. Y'all know that big B word. It's like a cuss word almost. It's like burnout. I'm burnt out. Okay, exactly. It leads to burnout. And so with burnout, you see my girl here, screen's acting up, but my girl here, she's just, listen, I'm barely hanging on to this thing. This thing is supposed to be carrying me, or I'm supposed to be on this thing, and this thing is more so on me. I'm supposed to be serving as a nurse. I'm supposed to be giving, and now I'm burnt out. I'm burnt out on giving to everybody else. I'm burnt out on serving other people. And some of us, if we're honest, we can feel guilty. We can feel guilty about that, right? It's like, wow, I don't want to feel guilty about the very thing that I once really loved. I think I'm in somebody's house this morning. I'm in somebody this afternoon. I'm in somebody's living room, so to speak. That's how we say it in my culture. Listen, I'm all up in your business today, but it's okay because we're going to get some help today, right? And so when we think about burnout, and I was studying these stats and things that are really happening that not a lot of people are talking about enough, it was found that female nurses, and it is up for the men too. I know my men are in here. It is up for the men, but female nurses are 70% more likely to commit suicide, y'all, compared to the general female population. Can you believe that? Did y'all know that? Like, let's just stop and think about that. Female nurses are 70% more likely to commit suicide compared to the general female population. So many of us are burnt out. We're emotionally wounded. We've gone through these traumatic events. We're feeling the effects of it. We're not recognizing it a lot of times. And it's leading to so many other things, like we talked about before. When a wound is left untreated, when we're not aware and we're not healing ourselves, it can lead even to death. And these numbers are startling. One, because this study from University of Michigan School of Nursing, it was done, y'all, check this out, before COVID. Hello. It was done before COVID. So this means that these numbers are now actually even higher. This was found that 70% or female nurses are 70% more likely to commit suicide before COVID. I know, Jen, right? Right. Tell me about it. I was looking the same way, like my girl here. She's like, what? Are you kidding me? No, we're not. And this is why it's time to do something about it. It's time to move. It's time to heal the healer. Okay. And it leads so many of these things when we're struggling, when we're emotionally wounded, we're acting out in different ways. Like we just said, we said signs and symptoms. We're avoiding people, we're avoiding spaces, we have bad dreams, we can't sleep, perfectionism, people pleasing. All of these signs are signs of emotional trauma. And a lot of us are coping in unhealthy ways. We're coping in unhealthy ways. And that looks like, but not limited to, overeating. Hello, I was guilty of that. That is how I gained over 60 pounds. You know, using drugs and alcohol, or I should say abusing, you know what I'm saying? Abusing these things because we just want to mask the pain. We're going through it, but we're not dealing with the root, and we're just, essentially putting band-aids on it, for lack of better terms. We're putting band-aids on these symptoms, and we're overeating, we're abusing drugs and alcohol, we're oversleeping. You know what I'm saying? I was guilty of that. Who's guilty of any of these things? And it doesn't make you a bad person, anything. It makes you human. Overspending. Hello, retail therapy. Don't tell nobody. Avoidance. We just avoid it completely. I don't want to talk about it. Leave me alone. And all of these signs, if we're honest, are signs of avoidance, because we're avoiding the actual issue by overeating, using drugs and alcohol, oversleeping, overspending. Yes, oversleeping at times. Thank you for your honesty. Yes, yes, yep, yep. This is a safe space. We're all being honest. I appreciate y'all's honesty. Yes, oversleeping, overspending. All of these all of these things are ways or signs that we're coping in unhealthy ways. Binge watching TV too much, and a lot of people, many oftentimes turn to unhealthy coping mechanisms because why? Why do you think people revert to these coping mechanisms? Overspending with Amazon. Yes, I love it. Come on, transparency. Yes. You're so welcome. You're so welcome, sis. Yes. And so why do you all think that we cope in these ways? Why? Give me some response. I want to hear back from you all before we move any further. I want to hear back. Why do you think we revert to these ways in particular? It's not limited to these ways, but why do you think we revert to these ways? A sense of comfort. I love it. I love it. Yep. They're easily available. I love it. Yes. Yes. And essentially those two responses are it in a nutshell. Someone else says, I do it to make me feel better, but I know it doesn't make sense. Yeah, you're not alone. Don't have healthier tools, too overwhelmed to pick healthier tools. Ooh, this is good. Y'all coming with it, okay? Makes me feel better. Absolutely. 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 I love it. I love, love, love this feedback. And yes, you're all right. We revert to these ways of coping because, one, we don't have healthier ways to cope, and healthier ways to cope are honestly maybe more challenging at that time. And we don't have anyone to hold us accountable to, cope in healthier ways. And they're easy. Let's be honest, they're easy. It's easier for me to overeat than it is to hire a life coach or therapist and go through the things that are really hurting me. And a lot of times we just don't want to deal with it. Can we be honest? We don't want to deal with it. It's a lot, and yes, absolutely. This is so good. Hard to ask for help. Yes, we have to put our pride to the side and we have to ask for help. How does a healer ask for help when I'm the one who does the helping, right? If I'm the one who does the helping, how do I actually ask for help? This is so good, y'all. I love, love, love it. And I wanted to show a quick clip on that I found on CBS Mornings to go to kind of walk through some of the things that you all are experiencing and know that you're not alone. Many of us are not alone.
Leaving their jobs. We spoke with 5 healthcare workers all around the country about the stress they face while on the front lines. Working in healthcare is definitely a marathon, and it seems worse now.
You don't get enough sleep, you're not eating, and you're working shift after shift. It's just exhaustion.
I might sleep for like 4 hours. I kept replaying the day over and over again. Did I turn this off? Did I do this correctly?
Thinking back to March of 2020, I did not think we would still be here now.
The ER that I work in, we have 50 beds that we can see patients in, and we are seeing our census at any given time is 100, so double what we actually have capacity for. I'll come home from work, and there's days where my scrub top is covered in sweat as soon as I'm walking out of work because we're hustling, the entire 12 hours.
You're seeing more death and dying than ever before, and that's hard. And we're people, we're humans, and we need time to grieve too. When you're busy and your hospital is bursting at the seams, you don't have that time. You just have to go on and take care of the next patient.
The burnout has been around, the inability to get ahead of it. So in healthcare, we're so used to being able to get ahead of different things. And a lot of times we haven't been able to do that with COVID-19.
The most difficult part of during this whole pandemic for me has been losing colleagues and friends to different jobs or different opportunities or to the burnout itself. I have friends that have gotten completely out of nursing.
You've got a shortage of workers. You've got lots of people out because they're quarantining. And so you're having to pick up extra in overtime in order to take care of patients. We need more nurses in the workforce.
I got very lucky that my fiance does the same job I do. We work side by side every day. Every shift we work is together. It definitely helps to have somebody who fully understands what I'm going through.
I had that heart-to-heart conversation with my husband, and I told him that this is what I love. This is what I want to do, because I was on the fence of if I was going to continue with this.
All healthcare workers right now should reach out and be willing to open up to their colleagues, to their friends, to their families, that when they're feeling that burnout, we're so used to taking care of other people, we tend not to take care of ourselves as much.
Oh, wow. Can anyone relate to that? Can anyone relate to that? I know even when I was watching it, it nearly brought me to tears because I'm like, yeah, like this is a real thing. Burnout is a thing. Compassion fatigue, emotional trauma. Can anyone relate to that? I'm a new grad, but I've heard from other nurses and some of my cohort, it's hard. Yeah, absolutely. And I even heard from someone who was only in the field as a nurse for 1 year, and she had already experienced burnout, and she was reconsidering her profession and if she chose the right profession, right? It's very a real thing. Yes, awesome. Thank you for your transparency and vulnerability, y'all. And so when we look at that, and similar to what the gentleman on the video was saying, there are actually stats that back this up and what you're feeling. So according to the International Center of Nurse Migration, as many as 13 million more nurses may be needed by 2030. The world's current nursing workforce totals in approximately 28 million. So we have about 28 million nurses, CNAs, healthcare professionals, but by 2030, it is expected that we will be actually even more at a deficit and in need of about 13 million more nurses. because nurses are retiring, and as a gentleman stated, many nurses are leaving the profession completely because they're burnt out, and how did something that was a gift that you loved before almost now seem like a burden, you know? But I want you to stay. And most importantly, I want you to heal. I want you to heal so you don't have to reconsider leaving your profession, because there are things that honestly you've gone through even before nursing that has made it even more challenging now as a nurse, with all of the things that are happening on and off the floor, right? Someone says, when I make it home, my family and I have the understanding that I need 15 minutes to sit in the car before coming inside. It's hard. This is so awesome. I love it. I love the vulnerability and transparency. That is real. That is very much real. And I appreciate you sharing that, because that is what some of the things that we're going to talk about today. That's a boundary. That's called a boundary. Hey, this is something that I need. Boundaries help us to really cope and to heal. And many of us don't have those in place. And so I kind of spilled the beans already, but how does the healer heal? How does the healer heal? This is a rhetorical question, but how does the healer actually heal? The one who's serving everyone else, the one who's pouring out, the one who's, many of us, if we're honest, found our identity in being a healer, in being the one, the go-to person that people go to, in being the nurse. Hello. And so I want to take you all through some practical ways and strategies on how you can begin to heal and really work through everything that you've been through, everything that you're going through, and everything that you will continue to experience. Because it's not that the job will change, right? But we have to change internally. Our response to things has to change. And that is what we're going to talk about today. And so I hope y'all got you a pen and paper, okay? Because we're going to talk about some really good things in practical ways that you can start implementing today. Not tomorrow, not next week, but actually today, as you especially prepare for your week to come. And so let's talk about it. Let's get right into it. The first step to actually beginning to heal and beginning to restore and heal those emotional wounds that you've gone through is awareness. Awareness. We talked about it earlier today. This is one of those things that's just, it's very broad and true. I mean, it's very broad, but it's very true. So awareness, self-awareness is how an individual consciously knows and understands their own character, feelings, motives, and desires. And many times as healers, if you're honest, you can say that sometimes I don't even know what it is that I want or need, because my needs have gotten wrapped up in what other people need. Can we be honest? My needs and desires has become intertwined, and almost I can't even decipher the two. If I'm doing it for other people, if I'm doing it for me, what do I like? What do I desire? What are my motives? So because many nurses and a lot of my nurse clients honestly have admitted this, that they don't even know who they are anymore, because now I'm living to serve other people and everyone is getting help but me. And so awareness is that key and pivotal thing that we want to start with. Becoming aware of not even just who we are, but the toxic thoughts, the toxic thought patterns that keep us in depression and anxiety, and feeling stuck and almost helpless. Becoming aware of those thoughts and belief patterns that has almost grown or been planted because of the trauma that we've gone through. So many of you have gone through COVID, and nursing through COVID was a whole traumatic experience in itself. But have you once sat down and said, hey, what are some negative thought patterns and beliefs now that I believe because of this trauma? How has this impacted me psychologically? How has this impacted me emotionally? Yes, losing my identity. Yeah, we lose our identity in becoming the healer that we don't realize and know who we are anymore. And that's okay, because we're now going to take the proper steps to figure this thing out. That not on my watch is what I want to say, because when you are aware of who you are and what triggers and what hurts you, you can begin to identify the root and stop the bleeding and avoid repeating the cycle. And so just like when a patient comes in, say they're bleeding somewhere, we have to figure out where is the bleeding, and so what is burdening you so much currently in your life And where did that thing come from? Where do those constant negative feelings that you're feeling, and how do we get to the root of that feeling? Like one of mine was not feeling good enough or feeling inadequate. It didn't matter how hard I tried. It didn't matter the relationships I was in, the things that I had, the nice cars, the everything. It was still within. And that is what we're working on. Figuring out where is the problem within, what has happened that has caused me to feel this way, and why am I constantly feeling this way? So awareness is the key, y'all. It is the key. So if you're taking notes, we have the awareness piece. And secondly, another thing that we want to do is detach. So not just detach in meaning that we run away. That's how many people think of detaching. So I just want to run away, get away from it. No, it's not detaching in that way, but it's a detaching. I want you to write this down. Your worth from your works. Detach your worth from your works. This is pivotal, and this will change your life once you get this, because many of us find our worth in our works. And like many of my clients say, well, if I'm not helping anyone, then who am I? Then what am I doing? I don't feel good about myself if I'm not serving in the way that I'm used to serving, if I'm not being the hero, And so as a nurse, it is very pivotal that you understand that you are so much more than a nurse. And I'm talking to you. Yes. I want you to hear this for you. You are so much more than a nurse. You have to detach your worth from your works. Before you were a nurse, you were a human being who needed particular things and love languages in a way that spoke to you, that now maybe you're not getting enough of that. And so you have to begin to detach your worth from your works. Just because you did that certain thing, it doesn't define you. You know what I'm saying? And many times we get accustomed to toxicity. And when we get accustomed to that toxicity, we're not even aware that it's even toxic. We're accustomed to negative thought patterns. And so I hope this is making sense. Is this making sense, y'all? Detach your worth from your works. Yes, yes. Matter of fact, put that in the comments. Detach your worth from your works. Definitely. I love it. I love it. I love it. Good stuff. We're gonna keep this going. And some of you need to write this on notepads or little sticky notes and put them on your wall, put them on the mirror. You need to detach your worth from your work. So before you even go into work, hey, I am not what happens to me today. And many times we don't just go through things, we grow through them, and we have to learn to release them as well. And so there's so many tips here. I want to move forward to the next one. Detach your worth from your works. I needed to hear this. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That is a game changer. And I want you to hold that one. Discover. So we have awareness, we have detach, and we have discover. So what does it look like to discover? Again, as healers, as nurses, many of you find yourself, your identity and your happiness now wrapped up in the needs of other people, in the needs of your patients, in the needs of your employers, your coworkers, your family. Your needs are now wrapped up in other people, and you are suffering while trying to pour from an empty cup. And so it is important that you discover, or maybe even rediscover, because you are an evolving individual, and some things that affected you before may not affect you now, and vice versa. And so I want you to write out a list today, after this workshop. Write out a list of your likes, your desires, and your values. And I want you to define that. What are those things to you? What are those things to you? When you define out the things that you like, when you define the things that you desire, and when you define the things that you value, what do you like? So maybe, for example, I like tacos. Okay. I like tacos and I want to eat tacos. I have to eat them in moderation, but it's important that I eat tacos because they make me happy. You know what I'm saying? But I didn't always like tacos. I had to sit down and figure out what are some meals, what are some things that I like and that I need to start implementing. Maybe I can eat them every day, but on a weekly basis or monthly basis, I need to figure out these things. I need to figure out who I am. And it boils down to even simple things like what I like to eat. And so I want you to write out, what do you like? What do you desire? Earlier, we talked about how we desire to go to different places in the country. Someone said Africa, Ghana. Yeah. So write that out. I desire to go on vacation once a year and I desire to go to X place. So write that out and be unapologetic about it. I desire to go on vacation once a quarter, whatever that looks like for you. What do you desire? That is separate from what other people desire. At this point, when you're doing this, I want you to shut out everybody else and the thoughts that even come up while you're doing this activity and say, what do I desire? What do I like? Okay. And then also, I want you to figure out, what do you value? All of these things are intertwined in each other. But when we think about values, we want to think about what do I value, in a sense of, where do I want to spend my time? So if you value spending time with your spouse, if you value your alone time, if you value spending time with your kids, going to get a massage, what do you value? Once you identify what you value, you then want to begin to prioritize those things. Many times our needs are last and the bottom of the totem pole. They may or may not get met, if we're honest, but everybody else, like where I'm from, and they mama, they say, get their needs met. And so now, as we're rediscovering ourselves and we're figuring out what we like, what we value, and what we desire, I want you to prioritize those things. What does that now look like in your schedule? So once a week, I'm doing X. I'm twice a month, I'm doing this. And I want to tell you, this is not an option. Okay. It's not an option. We just looked at the numbers, the staggering numbers earlier, how the suicide rates for nurses are increasing dramatically. It's not an option when you begin to prioritize these things. But how do you prioritize these things? How do you prioritize? We set boundaries. Set the boundary, sis or bro. Set the boundary. Are y'all with me? Y'all feeling this? Learning to be okay with saying no to other people, because we've been saying no to ourselves and maybe even our families, if we're honest, for way too long. So we have to get comfortable with using the word no and being okay with, again, detaching our worth from our works. And if I'm honest, detaching our worth from people's opinions. Let's say that, because many of us don't set boundaries because we're afraid of what other people will think of us. But what do you think of yourself? Oh, I think I'm hitting I'm in somebody's house today. What do you think of yourself? Because that is what matters. What you think of yourself will set the precedent and set the tone for everything else. And it will teach people how to treat you. You are in my head and my house. Hello, somebody. Yes, right? And so when we set healthy boundaries, we are telling people what we will and will not tolerate. And not just telling other people, we're telling ourselves, hey, what do you tolerate? What is okay for you? If you decide that you value time with your family over everything else, then there are boundaries that need to be put in place to protect that time. There are people that you have to begin saying no to. There are relationships that you have to maybe begin to eliminate. But we have to first identify what those things are, and then set the boundary for it. So part of setting the boundary, it looks like honoring how you feel. If something doesn't bring you peace, if it drains you, and sometimes, yes, work can drain us at times, but we have to be aware, sometimes it's not the thing or the person that drains us, it's the lack of boundaries that we set for ourselves. Ooh, yeah, I know it got kind of quiet. But it's the lack of boundaries we set for ourselves. So part of setting boundaries looks like honoring how you feel. Many people tell us to set boundaries, but they don't tell us how to set them. It looks like honoring how you feel. And when you feel that something isn't right, isn't giving you peace, you speak up. You use your voice. Your voice matters. Your feelings matter. Your opinions matter. So if you're taking on too many shifts and your charge nurse, your manager calls and say, hey, can you pick up this? Actually, I can't. Sorry, I'm prioritizing my needs during this time in my life, and I won't be able to do that. Sorry, I'm spending time with my kids today. That is the plan today, and that's what I'm going to do. You have to learn to not only just say no, but find alternate ways to say no. I'm really prioritizing things differently in my life right now, and I won't be able to do that. Being comfortable with changing your mind. Feeling safe and valid, sharing your emotions because you matter. And then also setting boundaries looks like being comfortable with disagreeing with someone. And then knowing that you're not responsible for other people's happiness. Put that in the chat, y'all. I am not responsible for other people's happiness. I am not responsible for other people's happiness. Someone said last week, my answer was simply no. And she was like, okay, I was thinking that's it. That's it. Yeah. No is a completely sentence. A complete sentence. Absolutely. No. And you don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to overgive. No, I cannot. I was reading a book about boundaries, and the husband and wife was having a conversation, and the husband apologized for being at work so much, but he said, I'm sorry, it's just hard for me to say no. The wife said, well, I found someone you can say no to. It's us, your family. You say no to us a lot of times. And many times we're saying no to ourselves, we're saying no to our families for the sake of other people. And so again, we have to begin setting boundaries and learning that no is okay. And it is very much a complete sentence. Okay, Nick, like Nick said it, very much a complete sentence, point blank, period. Okay, people may think you're acting funny. They may think you're being different. Well, you say, hey, allow me to reintroduce myself, period. Because I know I didn't set the boundary before, and I apologize for introducing you to that person, but that person is no longer here. I am upgrading, hello, and I'm saying no. Okay, and a part of healing also, let's continue this, is letting it go. Letting it go. Sis right here said, I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't want it. So when we identify our values, we identify our needs, we set the boundary. However, we have to remember that, again, because we are not responsible for everybody's happiness, it is very imperative that we begin to release negative emotions. We begin to release. Leave work at work. Leave work at work. Put that in the chat. Leave work at work. Because a lot of us are carrying extra baggage and weight that's not ours. It's not even yours, sis or bro. It's not even yours, but you're carrying it as if it's your own, and you're carrying it into your family. You're carrying it into your marriage, and you have to learn to release it. Yes, I love it. Leave work at work. Absolutely. No more your problem. No more your problem, Jen. We leaving work at work. Come on, Georgette. No more. We're carrying extra baggage that's not ours. And the one way that I help my clients release the negative or toxic emotions from certain events, 1, 2, 3, 4 release method. You inhale the desire. I desire peace. You exhale whatever you're releasing. I release chaos, whatever the thing may be for you. I desire peace. I release, fear, whatever it is that you need to release. Maybe you need to take a 2-minute, 5-minute break while you're at work, and you need to inhale what you desire, exhale what you're releasing. You need to consistently release feelings of guilt, feelings of regret, feelings of resentment. Many of you, your patients have died. How are you processing that? This is a good technique for you to use when you lose patients, or even when patients' families are, down your throat and they're getting upset with you. You have to leave that there. You are not responsible for everybody's happiness. There's only so much that you can do. And so we have to begin to, again, practice letting it go. If you can't control it, let it go. If you can't control it, let it go. That needs to be your mantra. If I can't control it, I'll let it go. Okay? And when we overdo or overgive, a lot of times it leads to resentment. So we have to be careful with that. All right? And so I'm going to continue to move forward. I hope this is helpful and is making sense. Take good notes. Take a lot of this with you. And many things, the infamous word that we know, self-care, right? But y'all, I don't just want to teach you self-care as in go to the spa. Many people they think of self-care, they think of what my girl doing right here. She looking good, she got her stuff on, she getting herself together. But I want to help you provide self-care techniques that's going to help you mentally first, because that's where self-care starts. It starts internally. And so I want you, and when you're feeling you know, when you're around chaos or you're feeling toxic or negative emotions that you don't want to feel, whether you're at work or not, I want you to begin asking yourself questions. Hey, how are you feeling? It's okay to talk with yourself. Check in with yourself. Hey, how are you feeling, Jen? Oh, you're feeling this way. Why? Because we have to not just practice how are you doing, but if it's something that we don't want to feel, where did that come from? Where did you pick that up, and how can we release it? Because many times we pick stuff up and we don't want to release it. And we don't release it because we feel like it's our responsibility now, right? As healers. And so ask yourself questions like, how are you feeling? Are you okay? If not, take the time you need to regroup. Affirm yourself. Hey, I love you. I like you. I am proud of you. Enter your name. You're doing a great job, Georgette. Great job, Nick. You tell yourself these things because psychologists show that many of the things that we endure in our adulthood, whether, you know, on or off the job, it's rooted in childhood trauma. And so we have to speak to our inner child and let them know that it's okay. Our adult self is protecting our inner child. And many times we don't check in on our inner child because we're so used to being an adult, so to speak, for the lack of better term. We're so used to having it all together. So affirm yourself. That is a part of self-care. Learning to say no, that is a part of self-care. Serving in a way that allows you to use your own interests and skills, where you're not just serving other people and pouring out just to pour out, but you're serving other people with gifts that you like to do, with things that you like to do. Okay, so all of these things are a part of self-care. Give yourself permission to be selfish. Give yourself permission to be selfish. And then last but not least, I want you to get your own healer. Get your own healer. Many of you are healing other people. You're the go-to friend that people talk to. Hey, oh my gosh, guess what happened? You're the go-to person on the job. Nurse, nurse, nurse. Hey, can you do this? Hey, can you do that? Hey, can you take the extra shift? But no longer can your husband, your parents, your kids, your bestie be the one that you're venting to. Yes, you can vent to them, but they can only take so much. And you have to get your own healer, a life coach and or therapist, both. Many of my clients have both life coach and therapist to help you begin to process and release and become the person you like and live the life that you love, right? You deserve that. You deserve that. You are worthy of that. And while also holding you accountable to not revert back to your old patterns. So we've talked through a lot of things today, and I want you to implement them, but I want you to get your own healer to put the icing on a cake to help hold you accountable to these things. Because if we don't have anyone holding us accountable, then we're going to revert back. Yes, nurse, nurse, nurse. Yeah. Hey, nurse. Hey, nurse, nurse. You know, at some point you get tired. Just shut it all off. Nurse this, nurse that. But who's nursing you, sis? Who's nursing you? Who's healing you? And so a few things I want you to remember as we talked about all of these things today. As you're healing and going through this journey, right? I want you to remember to give yourself grace. As a nurse, you can be so hard on yourself as the healer because you're so used to fixing everything. Nurse, can you get this? Even simple, hey, nurse, can you get the remote? Hey, you're going through a lot. You're being pulled on a lot. So as you're practicing setting boundaries, as you're practicing self-care, discovering, setting values, I want you to remember to give yourself grace because you've practiced a certain behavior due to trauma for so long, it's going to take time. And then know that healing is a journey. It's not a destination. So no comparison. Comparison is a no-no. I don't want you comparing yourself to the next nurse. Oh, she's doing so well. She looks like she has it all together. No, she may be hurting on the inside just like you. You're so much more than a nurse. I need you to remember that. That badge does not define you. That badge does not define you. You were a healer before you got the badge. And so it is very imperative that you speak to the person beyond the badge. And last but not least, I want you to know that you are enough. You are enough. You don't have to compete. You don't have to get more, know more, learn more, to feel like you're a qualified nurse. You've been qualified. Being a nurse is more than a job. It's more than a career. It's an assignment. It's a call. Many of you got into this profession wanting just to help and serve people. But now it is time for you to serve yourself. It is time for you to heal yourself. It is time for you to tend to you, okay? So you must know that you are enough. And so I want to hear back from you. I want y'all to put in the comments, which tip will you be applying? Because I don't want you to just take this information and just walk away and say, wow, that was awesome. That was good. Impact is all about application after the instance or the situation. And so after this, what do you plan to implement? What do you plan to take away? Even if you just give me one nugget that stuck out to you, that you plan to become more aware of and apply at the very least. Talk to me. Boundaries and self-care. Therapy is a must weekly for me. I love it. I love it. I want to affirm myself of my value. I love it. Absolutely. Detach. Get your own healer. Yeah. Detaching your worth from your works. I think that was a big one for all of us. Detach your worth from your works. You are not what you do, good or bad. Quite frankly, when you do good things, that's good, but it still does not define you. Leave work at work. Absolutely. Leave work at work. That is something I want you all to begin practicing. Practice the 1, 2, 3, 4 release method. Release it, let it go. And this is something you'll have to continue to practice, but continue to practice. And the more you practice it, the more it'll become a new habit. But have grace on yourself during this process, because it will take time, but you can do this. You are worthy. You are enough. And youdabomb.com and youdabiz.wiz. That's how I like to say it. Okay. And so that is pretty much our presentation for today. I'm so grateful to be a part of this Self-Care Sunday series. Do you all have any questions? Do you all have any questions for me? You're so welcome. You're so welcome. If there are no questions even now, no worries, because y'all can stay in touch with your girl, okay? Stay in touch with me. Hopefully I'll be back here soon. We can dig actually into these things that we talked about, what it actually looks like to set boundaries. You know, that's a whole thing in itself. But stay in touch with me at The Nurse Healer. You can follow me on Instagram. You can email me, believe@mykeshamack.com. Here's my web address for all the things that I offer. I do have a Healing the Healer coaching program. Again, that's launching next month. If you want to be a part of that, feel free to reach out. But again, I just want to thank Connect RN for allowing me to be a part of this. And I hope to see you all very, very soon. Thank you so much.